It's no secret that Barry King makes some of, if not the best leather stamping tools on the market. And after watching my videos and seeing me use quite a bit of Barry King tools, I've had a lot of you reach out and ask me to make you a list of tools that I would recommend you upgrade or purchase from Barry King. And while I do have a list that I'm going to share with you here in a minute, it's important to understand that there are hundreds of different tools and different sizes to each tool for a reason. One, we're not all going to tool the same designs, and even if we did, the size of those designs could be different. We all have our own styles and preferences around tooling. And so there's just a lot of variables that can dictate which tools you actually do need or want. And so the tools that I'm going to be talking about today are heavily based on my own tooling style and size, which is primarily floral work. So I'm not going to be discussing geometric pattern stamps, other various hand tools, or even swivel knives. I'm just going to be talking about stamping tools alone for common Western floral designs like I normally create. And one other thing before we jump into this video, keep in mind that the tools that I'm recommending, I am just recommending that tool in general. So yeah, a lot of these tools have different size options, but some of them have different texture options as well. So the texture on the face of the tool for the impression that's actually going to go into the leather, I'm going to share with you the exact size and the exact texture for the tools that I have and I personally like to use, but just know there's different options out there if you think you would prefer something else. All of these tools are what I use on almost all of my floral designs, and if I could go back and start over, these specific tools would be what I would personally invest in first. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. The number one tool on my list that I would recommend upgrading and that I personally noticed the greatest difference in my work has got to be the Bevelers. Now I have a few sets of Bevelers that I use, but my all-time favorite are these extra steep or XX steep checkered Bevelers, and I have the sizes 0, 1, and 2, 0 being the smallest, 2 being the largest. When it comes to floral carving, the bevelers are going to be a tool that you have in your hand more than any other tool. You're going to use bevelers quite a bit, so you really need to be comfortable with the tool and enjoy the tool that you're using. The reason that I prefer these steep bevelers is because they create a lot of depth in a project and can really make a design pop. The checkered texture on these doesn't show as much because it is a steep beveler, so the impression is a lot more down than it is out. But if you antique your projects, that checkered texture does hold antique really well, so the end result is usually a long, dark, heavy line, and I just really enjoy that look on a project. Number 2 on my list is going to be the thumbprint tool, which is a type of shader. What I have here are the sizes 1 and 2 in the horizontal line thumbprint. You may or may not have seen one of my older videos where I talk in depth over this tool, but the reason that I prefer this thumbprint over the traditional pear shader is because of that longer tapered shape. You can really create some cool effects with your shading on your vine works, your flowers, your leaves, so on and so forth. I use this tool quite a bit and I'm a big fan of it. So if you're interested in watching that full length video that I do have over this tool, I will link that in the description. Number 3 on my list is going to be the leaf liner, which is honestly a tool that doesn't get used a lot, but it can have a positive impact on your design. I have the number 2 size, which is a little bit larger than the number 1, and hence the name leaf liner. It's primarily going to be used on your different types of leaves, your traditional leaves, oak leaves, acanthus leaves, and you can even use it on feathers. It really creates a lot of cool shading and outward movement on the stems of those projects, and again, it doesn't get used a lot, but I really like the texture that it leaves on those specific structures. Number 4 on my list is going to be a center shader. I have the number 2 in the vertical line of this tool. To be completely honest with you guys, you can substitute any other shaders for this tool and get by just fine. However, if you look at this tool, one end of it is actually concaved, or it has that half moon shape. That's there to make life just a little bit easier when you're shading around the center of flowers. So when you're creating that blooming effect on your petals, shading around the flower center, which is normally a round or oval shape, that concave shape of that tool can give you a little bit more confidence shading around that without accidentally smashing part of your flower center down or ruining part of your tooling. So that's the main reason I have it on this list, is just because I personally have a little bit more confidence shading around my flower centers with this specific tool. Number 5 on my list is going to be a flower center, which is a really simple tool, and I actually own a few of them. But my favorite is this 18 seed oval in a size 2. Barry King offers a number of different flower centers in all sizes, so if you can afford to have a few, I would recommend picking some up because it's just a simple way to mix your designs up and change the look. There's so many ways you can mix and match these to really spice your artwork up and just make it stand out that much more. If you own a couple of these, or if you've ever used them, then you probably understand why they do cost a little bit more than some other flower centers out on the market, because they do leave such a crisp and deliberate impression. So if you can have a couple of these at hand, I would recommend doing so. For number 6, I'm going to go with bar grounders. The bar grounders that I use are a size 40, which just indicates the seed size itself, and that's pretty middle of the road. You can get some pretty small seeds and a lot larger depending on your preferences and the size of your work. And I use the number 3 and 5 seed tools. You can get a 7 and 9 if you have a lot larger backgrounding areas, but for my work, the 3 and 5 seed get by just fine. Bar grounding can be pretty intimidating and take a little bit of time to figure out. I know I had a tough time with it when I was first starting, and I intend on making a full-length video over just bar grounding to give my perspective in the future. But as far as backgrounding tools, it's by far my favorite. There's not a more clean, more professional looking background than a clean bar grounded area for me. All of those tiny details just pop, and I really enjoy it. Number 7 is a tool that I honestly probably should have had a little bit higher up on my list, and that's just because it's such a versatile tool, and that's going to be a veiner. Now, I prefer the lined and scalloped version of this tool, and this one is a size number 1, but there's so many different ways that you can get creative with this tool to add extra details to your designs. I like to use it on leaves, scrolls, feathers, sometimes flower petals. You can get really creative in the vine structure with it. There's just a lot of different applications to add extra details to your designs with this one tool, so I would highly recommend having at least one of them in your tool roll. As we work down this list and we get to the number 8 spot, this is where I'm going to place the mule's foot, and this particular mule's foot is a size 2, and they're typically going to be a U or a V shaped tool that you're going to use to accentuate movement or show some flow in a pattern. So show your flow lines throughout your vine structure. And this is where I'm going to try to keep it real with you for a second. This tool is great. I absolutely love it. And when I compare it to the lower quality tools that I have, it's the better option. But please keep in mind that you don't always have to have a $30, $40, $50 tool to create good work. These tools are great. I love them. And the words that I like to describe a higher quality tool is crisp and deliberate. That's one of the very first things you notice, especially with the tools that cover a larger surface area, is they're so crisp. But on a tool like this, where regardless of the quality, it's going to leave a deep or a sharp impression, if you will, you don't always have to have these higher quality tools to get good results. So just keep that in mind. Again, it's not a dig at this Berry King tool. I love it, and again, it is the better option, but you can sometimes get away on these sharper tools or these deeper impression tools with a lower quality tool of the same structure and create good work. Number 9 is going to be a lifter. Some people call them an undershot or an undercut, but this tool is used primarily to create depth, mainly around your leaves, flower petals. I use them on scrolls, turnbacks. The two that I have are a size 0 and a number 2 in a standard lifter. As you can tell, it's another steep, deep tool that's going to really penetrate the leather, and you have to be careful when you're using these, especially on thinner pieces of leather, because you can accidentally go all the way through, and you don't want to do that when you're tooling on a granite block. You could probably see on my number 0, I actually have went through the leather and kind of bent the tip of that lifter up. So do be careful. It is a really cool tool to create depth on your tooling, but just be careful when you're using it. And last but not least, I have in the number 10 spot a crowner. Some of you may or may not even heard about this, and this is probably a highly debatable tool to have on this list. But for me, I made this list based on the tools that I felt like I used the most and got the most benefit from. And I've really started using this tool here recently because I noticed how efficient you can be with it. So a crowner, if you look at the shape and the texture, it is kind of taking the place of where you would use a beveler around your larger items like your flower petals, your leaves, anywhere you can fit it really, instead of having to strike your bevel multiple times and walk it around. Anywhere you can fit this crowner, you can strike it once or twice and it's going to act in place of a bevel. And you can get really efficient and cut back on the time of your tooling by using this. So that is the main reason why I felt like it was beneficial to add it on this list, because I've started using it a lot more. The one that I showed in this video is a checkered crowner and a size 2. And that's the only one I have currently, but I do plan on investing in a few more recently because it is a very beneficial tool to have. This list is probably very debatable. I know I debated a few of these tools as I made this video. If you felt like I left something out, or if you felt like there might be another tool that could take the place of a tool I had on this list, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback. I hope this video helped a few of you out. I know I've got questions over this topic a lot recently, and so I wanted to make this video to just kind of provide some value to some of you guys and answer your questions. So if you did find benefit in the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. But that's going to wrap this one up. Those are my top 10 Barry King tools for floral carvings. Appreciate you guys, but until next time, we'll see you.